Hello, friends, and welcome back to Dare Me to Prosper. My name is Avery, and I'm your host. This is episode 65, and today we're doing a Patreon preview. If you don't know, I have a Patreon where I do 4 extra episodes every single month, an extra episode every week. And on the Patreon, we tend to go into topics that are either a little bit more woo-woo, a little bit deeper into the spiritual world, and also just a little bit more vulnerable on my part. Over on the Patreon, I've talked more about my divorce. I've talked more about relationships. We deep dive a little bit more over there. That's like level 2 of the podcast. But I am actually going to share one of those more vulnerable Patreon episodes on the main feed today. And truly, this isn't one I thought I would share. You'll even hear me say in that episode, like, yeah, I don't think this is not a main feed episode. But I think it is important. I think it's important for women especially to hear this. And it's a topic I think we should be just discussing a little bit more because I think it's common and I think people need to understand what's really happening beneath the surface and not have it remain something that they don't understand and therefore is causing unnecessary harm in their lives. So we're going to talk about female desire and emotional safety and how these things are connected. And I'm going to share my personal story with that. So I hope you enjoy the episode. If you would like more episodes like this, there is a link for the Patreon in the show notes. It's $5 a month for 4 extra juicier episodes. Okay. Hello, friends, and welcome back to Dare Me to Prosper, another Patreon episode. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being a patron. I am so grateful for you. Today's episode is why emotional safety is the key to unlocking female desire. This is an episode that I have thought about talking about for a long time, but now feels like the right time. And this is definitely one of those juicier episodes that I guess I could have put it on the main feed for Dare Me to Prosper, but I don't know. I feel like this is going to be one of those, like, it's going to be better if we have more freedom to say what we want to say behind the scenes. But this is an important topic to me. It's something that I have experienced myself and again was one of those like big wake-up call moments for me, learning experiences. Definitely something that I would not have understood very well unless I had been going through it. It's also one of those things where when you're going through it, a lot of women don't realize why or what's happening. And it was only because I started doing research to figure out, the ins and outs of what I was experiencing in the greater relationship, learning about emotional safety in women in general, that I started to uncover all of this. So again, though, disclaimer, I'm not a therapist, I'm not a psychiatrist, I'm not a professional in any sense. So these topics are just my experience from my own personal lens. This isn't medical information or anything like that. But I think this topic is a topic that gets talked about often without a whole lot of grounding into, like, we talk about the what a lot. We don't really talk about the why. We talk about the what being women feeling disconnected from the sexual aspects of themselves or their desires feeling suppressed. We talk about how this has been a topic that has carried a lot of shame for women in the past. Like, there are definitely collective conversations happening around this topic. And I feel like it's definitely another one of those topics where in today's day and age, we're really starting to ask more questions and allow people to be seen. And I love that. And I think it's really important. But I want to get really super specific in today's episode. And I want to talk about why women sometimes encounter the experience of their desires, their sexual desires, just completely shutting down within a relationship. So this is for the women who maybe are in a relationship or have been in a relationship where maybe it wasn't always this way, but over time, you may have recognized that your desire disappeared and you didn't know why, or you attributed it to, stress or being a mom or just the age of the relationship. And while those things certainly can play a role, I think what is very common and often gets overlooked is emotional needs that are being unmet And people don't recognize or understand how deeply and how much of an impact emotional needs, unmet emotional needs, have on a woman's sexual desire. This is one of those areas where I feel like if you have experienced this, I think it often gets framed in such a way where women tend to think that it's them, that they're doing something or not doing something, or they're just carrying too much stress, or, I don't know, their hormones are off. That hormones always get blamed. And of course, hormones do play a major role in a woman's life. So I don't want to sit here and say that hormones aren't ever to blame. But I would venture to say, again, I'm not a professional, but from my personal lens, I truly think that unmet emotional needs are a much more common cause of women's loss of desire than stress, motherhood, hormones, all of it. And that's why I want to talk about this, because I don't think women realize that. Because I too would have blamed my hormones. I too would have blamed motherhood and just fatigue and being tired and, being in a relationship for so many years and years. And I will say, while I'm not a professional, there are professionals who can tell you about this phenomenon. There are studies that have been done on this. There are books you can read. So I'm not just pulling this out of thin air. This is actually, a scientifically proven issue that many women experience. I'm just not licensed to tell you what is or isn't happening in your life. That being said, I will share a small bit of my personal story just to give you an example of why this topic is important to me. As you know, I was married for 13 years, recently separated, going through divorce. And within that 13 years, I will say there was never a season or a time where I felt like I was in a healthy, emotionally or physically safe place. Not safe, like physically safe, but there was never a point during that 13 years where I felt like I was fully embodying genuine, emotionally safe, physical or emotional desire. If I look back on that time, the entire time, there was always obstacles in the road. There was never a point over 13 years where there was a consistent, loving, safe, physical relationship in terms of intimacy. But what I'm trying to communicate is that from the beginning, things were not smooth in this area. From the beginning, there was always like a disconnect. Like we were always missing each other. I don't know. There was just a lot of confusion. It was never like a normal physical relationship. Normal, safe, loving intimacy was not happening from the get-go. And looking back, I think there was just a lot of like emotional trauma and confusion, and we were so young. And like I've discussed before, we were coming out of a very, very religious environment. And especially, I didn't grow up in it, but especially for people who grew up in that, I think that can have a lot of lingering trauma, regardless of whether or not that was a primary issue. It was in there. I feel like I'm having a hard time like getting my point across. I'm trying to be careful with my language while also really like telling you the honest truth, because I think this matters. And genuinely, like, this is what I would sit down and talk to a girlfriend over coffee with. You know what I mean? Like, I'm a very open person. I have no issue sharing with other people, especially if I feel like it's a topic that other people can relate to. But that being said, I'm trying to have a little bit of class here. So over the 13 years, like I said, it was never a consistent, loving, physical intimacy type of relationship. However, there came a point, I would say like roughly 10 or 11 years in. Now, mind you, I have 3 children, but all of my children were very much planned and intended around the time that they were born. But anyway, I feel like around 10, 11 years in, there came a point where it was like the pressure was building underneath the surface, where we had gotten into this really, honestly, very unhealthy habit of how we interacted within this relationship. And during all of those years and years, not only was there no consistent pattern of physical closeness, and I want to be clear here, this was not a situation where I was like actively not wanting to engage. Because I know, again, oftentimes that is immediately like where the mind wants to go. That was not what was happening. It was not like me as a woman not wanting to engage. This was very much just like a total disconnect where no one was initiating, no one was connecting. I don't even really have an answer as to why. And truthfully, I don't really feel like I ever got full answers or a full understanding of why we were in this place. But I'm just making it clear, like at that point, my desire was not shut down. And so I'm kind of getting to that part. But for the first, like 10 years, did I grow used to that dynamic? Yes. Did we sort of learn how to function within that interesting dynamic and just got used to it? Yes. Did I feel very much like I was living in a roommate situation? Yes. And so as you can imagine, that creates a scenario where you have a ceiling in terms of how much emotional closeness you can have as a couple, right? If you're missing that element, there's only so much closeness you can have within a romantic relationship, especially as a married couple. But again, I keep having to backtrack because I'm like forgetting pieces. But around 10 or 11 years, it came to a point where it was like things changed and things shifted. And there was clearly a point between us where it was like, okay, this is not sustainable. This needs to change. But then at that point, we were met with this realization of what had been happening under the surface for the last 10 years. And so it was kind of like, okay, well, this needs to change and this isn't working and this isn't sustainable. I mean, we sustained it for like 10 years, but it's not sustainable. And so we got to a point where, from my perspective, I was being asked to just like change the behavior. Like, okay, we should just change the behavior. Now we're recognizing this is an issue. Let's just change the behavior. That's all we got to do. Like, we just have to engage in things that we weren't engaging in. And that period of time was such a wake-up call for me, because for the first time in years and years and years and years, I was being faced with this opportunity for emotional closeness, physical closeness. But what I recognized in this wake-up call was that I had no desire. It was a big struggle. There were certainly times where, it happened because it was more about the emotional desire for connection in that moment. So that occasionally would happen. But what I recognized, especially the further and further along we went into that like 11th year, the 12th year, the 13th year, was it became more and more and more difficult for me to engage in that way at all. And I did very much feel confused. And I thought at first, maybe it's my hormones. Maybe it's because I'm tired, I'm stressed, I'm touched out because I have 3 kids. But the reality of it was I just wanted absolutely nothing to do with that. And what's even worse is that in society, there is this narrative, there is pressure that women especially should just do it, right? Like you've heard that, like, oh, just, men just have different desires and women should just give it up, just meet the need. Just do what you got to do. Let me tell you something. After going through what I have gone through, that narrative makes me so insanely angry, because what I have learned is that women are not naturally shut down. Women are not incapable of feeling healthy, strong sexual desire. And specifically, mothers, women in long-term relationships, women in marriages. There's kind of this story within our society that like young women have these desires, but once you have kids and once you get married and once all that, that kind of just goes away, or it just kind of dies down, and that just gets normalized as expected. And I think we need to stop normalizing that. And this topic is why. And primarily, I wasn't digging into like what's wrong with my sexual relationship. Primarily, I was digging into the emotional issues that I was having within the relationship, like the emotional issues and how to fix that, and how do I communicate better in conflict, and how do I try to save this dying marriage. And what happened was I kind of accidentally stumbled upon this information. I accidentally stumbled upon this research because I was looking for emotional answers and just kind of thinking that, it'll come back around, like the desire part, the sexual part, the intimacy part. It's not necessarily connected to the emotions. I was kind of connecting it more to, again, like hormones and stress and whatever. It wasn't until I accidentally stumbled upon this research that I kind of had this like, holy shit moment, because what I learned was so specifically and directly exactly what I was going through. And that is when women feel deeply unmet, deeply emotionally neglected, they're not feeling seen, when their nervous systems are in fight or flight, when they don't feel like they have a space to be vulnerable, when they don't feel like they have a stable, consistent, safe person, women's desires shut down. Now, I'm specifically focusing on women in this episode. So I'm not saying that men's desires can't also shut down in whatever ways, but in general, men tend to be able to compartmentalize a little bit better. I think we underestimate how closely connected a woman's emotional safety is to her sexual desire. A woman needs to feel regulated in order to be open to desire, pleasure, all of those things. Because again, especially for women, for everybody, but especially for women, it is a very vulnerable position to be in. Literally, I mean, physically, emotionally, all of it. And so biologically, women are wired to most freely be able to step into that place when they feel emotionally safe, when their bodies feel like this is a safe man or women. I'm just speaking from my lens in terms of dealing with men, especially because their hormones and the way that they compartmentalize these areas work a little bit differently. I'm not ruling out same-sex relationships as not being able to experience this. I'm more pointing to the difference between women's close ties here between emotion and biological responses. Because here's the thing, a lot of women, again, and it wasn't until I started recognizing like, oh my gosh, this is exactly what I'm going through. This is exactly what I'm experiencing. Many women don't realize how unsafe they feel until they finally do feel safe. You know, I've talked in previous episodes about how once I started sleeping by myself in a bed, how much safer I felt, how my body could relax, how my mind could relax, how I wasn't in chronic fight or flight when I could just lay down in a bed by myself at night. If that doesn't give you an idea of how emotionally unsafe and disconnected I was inside of this relationship, I don't know what will. And let me just add, once I started to understand what was going on, that was kind of one of my first eye-opening moments of going, oh, this isn't normal. This is my body trying to keep me safe, and I've been ignoring it, or I've been shifting the blame to hormones or to fatigue. And in reality, these are my body's way of waving red flags that I desperately need to pay attention to. And to be clear, you know, this was communicated in a way that I was hoping would be helpful to the relationship, and it wasn't. It's kind of full circle, right? That I'm discussing feeling unsafe and unmet and unheard and unseen as to why the desires have been shut down. But then when I go to communicate that point itself is unseen and unheard and shut down and dismissed. And that's how people get into these, you know, scenarios in the first place. So I guess I shouldn't be surprised. But I want to talk about this because I think it's probably going on in so many more households than we realize. And society does not value emotional safety for women inside of relationships like I believe they should, right? Because sex is valued, is it not? I mean, that it's idolized. It's everywhere. It's in everything. It's $1 billion industry. But, you know, one half of that relationship in this instance can only truly fully engage if there is emotional safety. But we're not talking about that. Nobody is talking about how women need emotional safety in order to fully be in the moment, to feel the desire, to open. And I feel like that right there tells us so much. Because here's the thing, the female body cannot feel desire and feel unsafe at the same time. Feminine desire is very tender, it's very intuitive, it's very layered. It needs to feel held, it needs to feel safe, it needs to feel seen and heard. When you are in a relationship as a woman, if you are being ignored, gaslit, emotionally manipulated, your body will shut down arousal. Your body will shut down those signals. I mean, because think about it, biologically, right? what is your body doing? It's protecting you from having offspring with a man that feels unsafe, who could then eventually be a danger to your child, right? I mean, biologically speaking, that's kind of what's going on under the surface. But that doesn't really matter in today's society with the way that the society views sex and women. Emotional safety rarely comes into it. And I'm not just talking about consent. There's a difference between consent and like truly feeling emotionally met, emotionally safe. Because women, they give sex to get love, right? It happens often when they're feeling emotionally unmet. Many women are easily persuaded to open themselves up in that way, hoping that in return they will feel emotional closeness, assuming that they were not already getting it. Because being sexualized as a woman without being emotionally nurtured sends really confusing signals to your body. A woman's body will, quote unquote, go quiet when she has been emotionally dismissed, ignored, unheard, unseen, gaslit, put down. So if you are a woman who is going through this, you may start to recognize that you avoid intimacy, that you feel kind of numb, and you may notice the desires start to fade. You know, you're not daydreaming. You're not fantasizing. The movies you used to watch that used to make you giddy don't do as much anymore. Whatever it is for you, you will notice when your body starts to shut down. But the societal line that we're used to hearing is you're tired, it's your hormones, you've had babies, you're busy, you're stressed. And so what do women do? They continue to engage with their partner because they assume, well, it's just me. It's just my hormones. It's just me being tired. It's just me being stressed. This is still an important part of the relationship. I'm just going to do what I need to do. Not recognizing that this entire time their body has been waving a red flag, begging for emotional safety, begging to feel cared for because they're in a relationship that is not emotionally safe. When you do have emotional safety, if you are in a relationship that does feel emotionally safe, where you feel heard, where you feel cared for, you feel listened to, you feel valued, your body is designed to reignite. Unless your hormones are just so off kilter, or if you have some other external trauma in your body. Again, not a doctor, I'm just speaking in broad terms. Your body is made to light up when you feel emotionally safe. It is natural to have an increased libido, a desire to initiate, a desire to explore. You feel more creative, more magnetic, more confident. And I talk about this in so many episodes, but it's just another moment where I'm trying to paint this picture of we don't understand how connected everything is. We don't understand how much everything is connected to our emotions. Everything is connected to our energy. Everything is connected to how we feel inside on a day-to-day basis. And not just consciously, but subconsciously. When you feel safe, your body comes online. Emotional safety doesn't kill mystery and excitement, right? It amplifies it. Emotional safety is not like boring, I've been with this person for 50 years. If you feel emotionally safe, your sexual desire does not just die because you've known someone for 10 years. It could die because the actual emotional caring within the relationship has gotten lazy. Desire, again, I want to scream this until I'm blue in the face. Desire doesn't disappear with age or stress purely due to age or stress. I mean, yeah, when you're 70, are you going to be tired and that plays into it? Sure. I'm not saying it has no effect. But what I'm saying is we are so quick to just blame it on the first hint of bodily malfunction. Like, oh, you're tired, so you'll never want to have sex. Oh, you have kids. Oh, you're stressed. Oh, your hormones. Oh, you're older. Blah, 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 blah. Bodies aren't built that way. Your desire should be a lifelong part of your internal world. It only goes completely dormant when your emotional environment is barren. When your emotional safety shuts down, that is when the desire shuts down. So again, I will link some resources in the show notes because I really feel like it's better if you go and really dig more into this on the professional side, if this is something that you feel like you struggle with. But it was really important to me to just put this topic out there because when I look back on my life, I just feel kind of sad for my younger self, mostly just because I didn't know any different. I didn't know what was normal and not normal. I didn't know that feeling emotionally safe was something that I should have, that I should ask for, that everyone should have. And maybe it wouldn't have had to be 13 years long of all of this confusion and painfully slow learning about what I was really experiencing. So if this helps even one woman realize or recognize that she might be experiencing this too, and that helps you, then this was totally worth it. So again, thank you for being a Patreon. This is definitely one of those episodes that I'm just so glad that we have the Patreon for. I would like to dive into more episodes similar to this one, where we can just be frank and just talk about the stuff that a lot of people don't want to touch. Not because I'm an expert, but because I've experienced some really hard things, and I'm probably not alone, and there's probably some other people that can relate to this and need to hear this too. So thank you for being here. I love you guys. I'll see you in the next episode of Dare Me to Prosper.